Okay, so let's move on now to Dr. Donna Hicks, who is an associate at the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs here at Harvard. Donna has been involved in numerous unofficial diplomatic conflict resolution efforts, including projects in the Middle East, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Colombia, Cuba, Northern Ireland, as well as Libya and Syria. She was a consultant to the BBC, where she co-facilitated a television series titled Facing the Truth with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which aired in the UK and on BBC World. She has taught conflict resolution at Harvard, Clark, and Columbia universities. And Donna conducts training seminars in the Dignity Model, a human-centered approach to rebuilding conflict relationships in the US and abroad. She's author of the book, Dignity, Its Essential Role in Resolving Conflict, 2011, Yale University Press. And she has a new book coming out this July, which is titled Leading with Dignity, How to Create a Culture That Brings Out the Best in People. And I think that's a very good segue to her remarks this morning. Thank you, Donna, for joining us again.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you, Danilo, and Manuel, and Rita, and everyone who's responsible for making this happen. And let me just say, a lot happens behind the scenes, so I want to just acknowledge and appreciate all the work that you've done to make this happen. Those of you who have heard me before know, and based on my intro, that I came to this idea of dignity and the importance of dignity in our lives from a very dark place, from working on international conflicts where people were opting to kill each other. And my main goal at that point was when I really understood how significant a role dignity was playing in creating these conflicts. I guess it's more appropriate to say the role that indignity played in these conflicts was, not being explored. And I realized that this was such a tremendous source of human suffering. And if we could figure out a way to get people to understand and address these violations of dignity, maybe we could help end the suffering, end the conflicts, and so on. So that, I think about that as sort of coming at it from a negative point of view on dignity. So, but now, after, well, let's see, how many years, probably a decade, of working with dignity, with parties in conflict and with people in organizations, because, by the way, that was the other thing when my first book came out. I thought I was writing that book for the international conflict community, my community, but it actually touched a nerve in the corporate world, in healthcare, in education, and in faith communities. And so I realized, wow, I think I hit on something really deep and important in the human experience. And talk about universals. I mean, I was listening to Tyler talk about these universals that he was trying to get at in his survey. I think the desire for dignity is profoundly universal. There isn't any country or any continent that I've been to where people have felt, nah, dignity, I don't care about that. Everybody wants to be treated as if they matter. Everyone. And so I started working with this concept of dignity. I created what I call the Dignity Model and started working in the corporate world. People asked me to come in. They said, look, I realize our problem has to do with dignity here. People aren't feeling like they're not being treated well. So can you come and help us? All right, so I did. And I did that for many years with all sorts of, not just the corporate world, but workplaces of all kinds. And I saw something that really sort of surprised me, which is not only did the conflicts get addressed from a dignity perspective, people understood how profound an impact it was when they weren't treated with dignity, but there was actually an upside to it. In other words, people really responded positively when they felt their dignity was being honored. So from that point on, I would say for the last couple of years, I've really been focusing on the positive aspects of dignity. What is it that it contributes to our life, that makes our lives meaningful and contributes to flourishing, as Tyler just so beautifully pointed out? What is it about dignity? And so, as Danilo pointed out, I wrote this other book about leading with dignity, because I think in the workplace, if leadership doesn't understand how this very, simple but profound idea of treating people well, how that affects trust building, how that affects loyalty, how that affects, it actually brings out the best in people. So, by the way, you have the handout. So, very specifically, I interviewed people and asked them, what is it, how do you want to be treated? What would that look like to you? And they came up with these 10 elements of dignity. This is interviews that I did with people from all over the world. And there was this universal dimension to it, even though the stories that I got from people were slightly different and the context was different, but the underlying feeling of how they were being treated, it was the same. So people want their identity accepted, no matter who they are. They don't want to be treated as less than because they're from a different race, religion, or ethnicity. People want to be recognized for their unique qualities and way of life. They want to be included in the, they don't want to feel marginalized or left out. People want to be acknowledged. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the one that I do want to spend a little bit of time on here now is the idea of safety in the workplace. Because what really surprised me when I did my interviews in the workplace was that the one element of dignity that people felt was violated the most was safety. And what do I mean by safety? I don't mean physical safety, like they were afraid of being beaten up or anything. I don't mean that. They were afraid, they didn't feel safe to speak up when something bad happened to them. So let's say their boss violated their dignity, or their manager, or their supervisor. They were scared to death to speak up. And so I'm thinking, this is really interesting. This is a leverage point here. Let's make the environment safe to have people speak up when something bad happens to them at work. So that's one whole thing. We could have another entire colloquium on how to create safety in the workplace. But I'm telling you this because once people do feel safe, they do feel like they're free to speak up and talk about what their experiences are. This is when they feel this internal sense of loyalty to the company. They feel more engaged. They feel the productivity rates. There's research to support all this. So I'm thinking, all right, so this is important. But the other dimensions that came out of my research in the workplace was that people also wanted to feel connected to a higher purpose. So it got me thinking, you know what? I think dignity is really more than just our individual worth and wanting to be treated well. I think if we really want to get to dignity, we have to think about three concepts. Connection, connection, and connection. What are those? I could go on for a long time about this, but the first connection is to our own dignity. When I went in for the first time into the corporate world, there were so many people who didn't even know they had dignity. They didn't even understand that they had value and worth, and that was part of their birthright. And the second connection is to the dignity of others, recognizing that other people have the same dignity and were born with the same dignity that you were born with. And the third connection to a higher purpose and to something greater than yourself. That could be transcendent, that could be a higher power. But in the workplace, people wanted meaning in their jobs. People wanted a sense of, I'm contributing to the greater good here in this environment. So those three things, connection, 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 is, I think, what is at the core of human flourishing, because it takes it outside of our individual selves. I was appreciative of your comment, Sandra, that it's bigger than just us, dignity. Dignity is about my dignity, your dignity, and the dignity of something greater than us. So how much time do I have?
About 3 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. So this led me to another idea, which was inspired by Barbara Fredrickson. And I read her little book called Love 2.0. And in this little book, Love 2.0, she's a positive psychologist. She's very well known in the field of positive psychology. She's done extensive research on this. And what she found in her research is that love is really about connection. connecting with other people. And so I thought that was great. And she ended up talking about love in very different ways than you and I might be thinking about it. She's talking about love as an opportunity to have a positive connection with someone, even a fleeting moment of what she calls positive resonance, where we're connecting as human beings. And she has shown that all of these momentary, fleeting moments of connection with people actually also increase productivity, increase loyalty, increase trust, increase employee engagement. So all of a sudden, I'm stumbling upon this idea of thinking that dignity is really about love. Because if she's right, that love is connection, then how do you make that connection? You make that connection by treating people as if they matter. And you always get a positive response when people feel their dignity is being honored. So, you know, this is an opportunity for us, I think, and because we don't really have to think of treating people well as a big task or as something that is so, you know, formidable that we can't do it. We can do this. I promise you we can learn this. I've been teaching this now for the last couple of years, and people respond so positively when they know what to do. But the point is we have to learn this. This doesn't necessarily come naturally. So for the workplace, if you want to increase trust, if you want human flourishing, number one, make sure everybody's connected to those 3 C's, their own dignity, the dignity of others, and to something greater than themselves, and let's leverage that. We can leverage that so easily to create this in our work environments.
Great.